Hello friends, welcome back to the Mothership. Today we're going to be smoking up our very own barbecue meatloaf made out of ground brisket. Let's get started. Alright, to make our meatloaf, the first thing we have to determine is what kind of meat we want to use. Your options here are, you can go straight ground beef, you can go a mixture of sausage, you can kind of do whatever you want. You can do some exotic meats. I like to use 100% brisket, so this is a trimming from one of my earlier briskets, probably about a 70-30. But what you could do is a pound of like 80-20 ground beef and a pound of pork or sausage. That would work too. If you do have the brisket, I really highly recommend it because as we all know, brisket can take low and slow cooks for a very long time and they come out just perfect. Now, this is 2 pounds of meat. We are going to add in some of our breadcrumbs, all of our milk, actually maybe not all of it, our Worcestershire sauce, both of our eggs, all of our dry seasoning, and then our garlic and our shallot. And I'm going to start mixing this together with the expectation that it will need more milk and more breadcrumbs. Now the trick for making meatloaf or meatballs or anything like that is to not over mix. Now you want everything to be nice and tacky and hold together, but you really don't want to over mix it. You want to just get it just to the point where it holds and everything is thoroughly distributed and then stop. As you can see, this is still kind of really soupy, so we're going to need to put a whole bunch more breadcrumbs in. I fully expect to use both cups of breadcrumbs. I'm just going to add them in slowly as we go through here. Now just looking at this mixture, it's still a little bit too loose for me, so I am going to add some more breadcrumbs. This is kind of the way you do it. You slowly add in some breadcrumbs until it gets to a thickened enough mixture. If it's too thick, you can add some more milk in, but it's just like baking. Always adding in more flour or more water or milk to get to the consistency you're looking for. We obviously want this to hold together and not just fall through our grates, so it needs to hold together at least a little bit more than this. And this meat mixture is holding together kind of the way that I want it to. As you can see, it's still got a nice good consistency where it will fall apart, but it's not just complete slop. So this is mixed together. Now let's make ourselves a meatloaf. Now if we were cooking this in the oven, I would probably just get a bread pan and just fill it up the whole way in the bread pan. But the problem with that is we won't get any smoke if we do that on the smoker. So we're just going to make it into this lovely shape here, which you can make all the jokes you want because I'm making them myself. And that's really it. I'm going to put it onto a wire rack, kind of the tightest wire rack I can find, and then it's going to go onto the smoker. But before we do that, I am going to put it back into the fridge to let everything start to congeal together, let the flavors start to melt throughout the loaf before we put it onto the smoker. We are 4 hours into our cook and our meatloaf is chugging along happily. I've had it on at 180 degrees this entire time and the internal temperature is showing 143. At this point, I'm actually going to begin basting it in barbecue sauce. This is a homemade barbecue sauce I threw together. If you want to use a commercial one, what you can do is usually they come out of the bottle very thick, so just add in some tomato sauce, maybe a little bit of vinegar to it, and that'll thin it up enough to be able to baste much easier. And basically, I'm just going to keep basting it every 15 minutes or so until we're done. I'm targeting internal temperature, like I said, about 165. That is because I'm using brisket. If I was doing like a leaner cut of beef, I would probably be looking to actually pull it off somewhere around 145 to 150, which means I would begin basting much earlier in the game here. But let's just keep doing this and I will show you what it looks like when we pull it. That red color looks beautiful. So a little over 4 hours later and we are done. As I said before, I let it go till a little over 160. 165 is my target temperature with ground brisket. If you're using ground beef, maybe adjust that a little bit lower. I don't really think I could use 165. You could probably get away with close to 150, maybe 145, and then adjust when you put your barbecue sauce on a little bit accordingly. But as always, I am quite hungry here, and this looks great. We got a nice smoke ring coming in, and the meat is definitely looking nice and juicy. So guys, I think it's time to give this the old taste test, and go. This is fantastic. It is a lot like my meatballs. It's a very similar recipe if you're following along. But with the barbecue sauce, it is really nice and has a nice sweetness. And the brisket is so good. This is a delicious way to do meatloaf, guys. Usually I grew up having a meatloaf that either had a brown gravy or a tomato base, but barbecue meatloaf, it's really a good way to do it. And when you add in a little bit of smoked flavor, it's a pretty simple cook, guys, and it's a great way to use leftover trimmings from one of your briskets. I highly recommend it, and I highly recommend you guys let me know what you guys are cooking up these days. What else should I cook? What would you guys like to see on the channel? Like, comment, subscription, all the YouTube stuff. And as always, guys, cook something fantastic.